Hi, this is Mike making my video. Uh, anyway, it's 5/3/2025 and it's 8:30 p.m. Um, I'm basically making this video to talk about the mind, manifestation, things like that. Uh, you know, I have a kind of a mind that works on things all the time. It's always turning gears. I'm basically thinking all the time. So, with that being said, I pretty much figured out the phenomenon of basically manifestation and things like that. It has a lot to do with your thoughts. Well, it has everything to do with your thoughts, but then your energy as well, and of course your beliefs. Um, so with that uh, being said, um, I've had a pretty fulfilling life so far. Like today, I got me a vacuum cleaner, a Kirby, and it was only $30. Had all the attachments, and that's what I needed. And I was actually thinking that those Kirby's aren't that bad of a deal. They're pretty dependable. I needed a vacuum cleaner, and I got one. I got one the other day, and then the belt was broke. But then, it's still worth what I paid for it. I only paid $6 for that one. So, that's really what life is uh, a series of things that are fulfilling, and you know, so you go through life and you basically have it to where uh, the struggle really is over. You don't have as many problems. Uh, you know you you know you slowly let go of things, and then as soon as you've met the desires that you wanted, you've had the things that you wanted in life. That's the way it works. Things are easier. Things aren't as difficult anymore, and I guess that's pretty much what they mean happily ever after. Being happy is, right around the area of being content. Euphoria is when you have intense suffering and then you have a major release. You have a epiphany, which can come in the form of maybe merchandise, or you could find out that you're having a kid, or you could meet a certain person or whatever, and then again money and stuff like that. So but the major one is miracles. Those are intense, and they have a lot to do with seeing and hearing things that most people can't see or hear. So anyhow, with that, uh, life could be pretty decent. I think a lot of people are trying to say that this is hell, but in a lot of ways, it's really heaven. Uh, that's really the best way to say it. So, uh, life is a series of successions of accomplishing goals and stuff like that. And that being said, you have less things to worry about. And you take away from a man's desires, you add to their wealth. Uh, but I've got all kinds of little things to keep me occupied, trinkets and whatnot, projects, and I've just traveling here and discovering things and whatnot. Uh, so anyway, life is can be very grand. It can be a very good thing, and it's not bad. And sometimes when you have a lot of, let's say, anger or whatever and stuff like that, you can turn that anger into something very positive. Based on you know how you channel your energy. So anyhow, with that being said, I don't have many more things to worry about in this life. Um, You think about it though, with between the miracles and the manifestations, the synchronistic events and the subtle things, and then of course the gross things that are big. Uh, and then of course achievements. Um, a lot of people put a real high value on achievements, and it's not. It's crazy, for somebody to have a major achievement, a major goals that they achieve, compared to other people. Some people are satisfied with less. It will get eventually get that way where I no longer have the desire to chase after certain things. Uh, you know, but I do. So anyhow, basically, that's pretty much all that life is. In the end, of it, is basically just a bunch of goals that you accomplish, and you get to the point where there is nothing left to do anymore, other than just relax and take it easy and enjoy life. It says go to a place of rest. Uh, if you don't find a place of rest, you're going to be worm fodder. you know. So the thing is you always have to take care of yourself, and with that being said, you always have to take care of yourself, and you always have to look out for number one, and then you fill your cup up, and then you can fill other people's cups. So, uh, I don't chase after women. I don't drink alcohol. I don't do drugs. Very seldom, every once in a while. In a great blue moon, I did meth, and that actually took me places. But I really don't mess around with drugs too much, and I don't go to college anymore. I don't feel the need to do it, and I'm too old to be playing that game. And of course, women. There's no kids involved. There's no real purpose in wasting a woman's life. Chasing after pussy all the time. I can get that. It comes and it goes, and it's like, right now I'm just not in a position to chase after that. And of course, I'm not interested in buying a new car. I did it once, and I'll never do it again. And with as many miles I drive and stuff like that, it just doesn't. It's not conducive for me to have a new car. And like I say, a big house. I don't need the payments and all that. I don't want it. And yeah, I'm content with what I've got. I got a small room, but it's enough. And it's way better than a prison cell. I've experienced that. So, like I say, it's like if I want to escape this world, I put my goggles on. I can see anything I really want to see, and if I do that, then that actually gives me, I can expand my territory and expand my mind, and I just enjoy things. Sometimes it's small things. It's crazy. Sometimes you get something for $30 that is worth far more. Uh, so it's like, so anyway. That's really all there is. There really isn't nothing left anymore, other than taking care of the things you got to take care of, and then of course doing what you got to do. But other than that, though, it's like life is a bunch of fulfillment. You have a lot of questions in your mind, burning desires in your heart. About your mind was considered your heart back in the day, and you have a bunch of burning desires, and you go through all those phases. And then you get through that, and then eventually it gets to a point where you're not really chasing after things like you used to. So anyhow, that's as simple as it gets. And then you pretty much exhaust all the possibilities of all the things that you really need, and then you find out that eventually in the end game you really don't need as much as you thought you needed. And so really, it's eat, drink, and be merry. Work with your hands. tinker with stuff, fix things, work with your mind. Uh, things like that. But don't take on too many projects that are too big for you. And don't necessarily spread the word love all the time. Sometimes if you do that too many times, you spread it thin. You don't want to spread yourself thin. Either you don't want to have a bunch of friends. It's not so much quantity; it's quality friends. And you find out that usually people are backstabbers, backbiters, and they naysayers, and you go through all that. So then I just kind of say to myself, I really don't want to deal with people. So anyhow, other than having material possessions and accomplishing goals, and doing things, I don't travel anymore. I don't have any need to do it, and like I say, I don't go out to eat. It's crazy high expensive, and I eat food out of a can, smoke cigarettes out of a bag. Wash my own clothes, and cook my own food or whatever. So anyway, that's really how that works. And then you got to figure you tighten your belt as much as you can. You don't eat as much, and you don't get all obese and all bloated. And you got to feel better. And sometimes you got to cut back on food. And you don't want your stomach to be your god. So anyway, that's how that works. Uh, so yeah, life is just a bunch of fulfillment, and you do all these things, and you accomplish all these things, and then once those are done, you have less desire. That's how you accomplish these things. You take away from a man's desires, and that makes you wealthier. It's not so much monetary. I mean, it could be intelligence, it could be spiritual knowledge, magical abilities, uh, large family, a lot of friends. However you want to play it out. But you could have a lot of straight up money and stuff like that. But a lot of good looks. You take care of your body. Your body is not cheap to maintain, and your health isn't really that cheap either. You got to take care of yourself. So when you got a flat tire, you don't just put a patch on it necessarily and let it leak. Keep pumping it up with air. You change the tire, and you got a medical condition. You take care of it, and you got a financial problems. You try to take care of them, and then legal obligations. You try to take care of that. And just little things. Sometimes a little mistake, could cost you everything. So it's kind of a slippery slope, in life. But uh, you know, you got to take care of things, and you got to be attentive. And of course, morality is important too. You don't necessarily want to get involved in too many goofy things. You don't want to be a killer with blood on your hands. You don't want to, have goofy relationships that really are messed up. And like not having a woman or whatever. I'm not into men, and that would be terrible. So anyway, that's how it works. And you don't get into politics. You center yourself, but you don't get into politics. You're not non-polarity. And of course, you be a passersby. You walk past things. You don't get involved in them, and you don't want to be a busybody. Running your mouth about people. And of course, you stay away from violence. I tried that and I almost got killed. So anyway, that's how all that stuff works. And then you know, take care of what you can take care of. That's all you can do. And you know, it's not always having a ton of money. You don't have to have a huge house, beautiful giant cars and all that. You can just be simple. You know, dress modestly in every sense of the word. Be modest. So anyway, that's all I got to say. Over and out.